If Niccolò Machiavelli walked among us today, he wouldn't be publishing books or chasing likes. He wouldn't be on podcasts or dropping threads on X. He'd be invisible, untouchable, pulling levers you didn't even know existed. In a culture addicted to exposure, he'd win through disappearance. Because visibility is noise. Power is silence. And what I'm about to share isn't theory, it's doctrine. 21 psychological rules, not as Machiavelli wrote them, but as he would live them if he were reborn into our age of surveillance, algorithms, and attention wars. These rules aren't polite. They aren't moral. They are surgical, designed to carve through illusions until you see how power really works. Rule 1. Let them underestimate you. Ego is the modern disease. Everyone flexes credentials, chasing validation, proving they're the sharpest person in the room. Machiavelli would never announce his brilliance. He'd walk in late, let the loudest voices reveal their insecurities, then speak with such precision that silence followed. Because when you're underestimated, people reveal themselves. They relax. They stop guarding their weaknesses. Psychologists call this the underestimation effect. People lower their defenses around those they perceive as harmless. And once you're inside their guard, you strike. Power concealed is power multiplied. So, let them believe you're quiet, unthreatening, irrelevant. That's when you watch. That's when you gather. That's when you choose the moment no one thought you'd take. And when you finally move, it's already too late for them to react. Rule 2. Charm is deadlier than truth. In the age of virality, truth isn't what spreads. Perception is. Neuroscience confirms this. Our brains privilege emotionally satisfying narratives over facts. Machiavelli knew centuries ago that people don't experience reality. They experience appearance. He would never waste time proving his integrity. He would craft illusions. He'd weaponize likability. He'd disarm with warmth, flatter rivals in public, give enemies false confidence with a smile. People defend those they like, even when betrayed by them. Charm is not weakness. It's anesthesia. It numbs the subject while you operate. Don't fight perception. Don't resist it. Exploit it. Let them worship the mask while you quietly rewrite the ending behind it. Rule 3. Ambiguity is a weapon. We're taught to make ourselves clear. Machiavelli would scoff. He knew confusion creates obsession. The less people understand you, the more they study you. Neuroscience shows uncertainty triggers dopamine loops. Our brains chase clarity until exhaustion. So he'd alternate between cold silence and rare intensity. One day approachable, the next impenetrable. Not because he's unstable, but because their minds can't anchor him. They orbit his unpredictability. They replay his words. They overinterpret every pause. You are not a person anymore. You're a puzzle. And puzzles are addictive. Those who think about you most are the ones you control most. Never over-explain. Never fill the silence. Let your vagueness become their gravity. Rule 4. Control what they see. Conceal what you do. In a world where everyone broadcasts their every move, Machiavelli would master concealment. Oversharing is self-sabotage. The moment people see your process, they build counter-strategies. They spread rumors. They dig trenches. His method? Appear transparent while keeping the core invisible. Share results, never mechanics. Offer stories, never blueprints. Feed the feed, but guard the factory. Modern translation. Don't reveal your systems. Don't explain what you're building until it's already finished. Surprise is the last real weapon in a society addicted to anticipation. Rule 5. Build a mask, then fracture it. Flawless people are forgettable. We remember the crack in the marble, the scar on the face, the imperfection that feels real. Machiavelli understood this paradox. Perfection repels fascination, but flaws magnetize it. So you create a mask, composed, competent, unshakable. Then you let it slip once. A sharp word, a flash of darkness, a moment of startling vulnerability. You give them 90% of the character, but leave 10% unresolved. That 10% becomes their obsession. Psychology calls this the Zeigarnik effect. We remember the unfinished more than the complete. A perfect mask is disposable. A cracked mask becomes unforgettable. Rule 6. Say less than necessary. Excess words reveal excess need. The need to be validated, understood, defended. Machiavelli knew restraint breeds dominance. Words, used sparingly, become blades instead of blankets. In negotiations, he wouldn't argue. He'd speak one sentence, then stop. Silence would do the rest. Neuroscience shows silence forces the brain into predictive overdrive. People project fears, hopes, and insecurities into the gap. They imagine daggers you never had to draw. Powerful speech isn't about filling space. It's about creating space. Use words like traps. Then let silence close the jaws. Rule 7. Blur the line between ally and enemy. People crave certainty. They want to know who's safe, who's dangerous. Machiavelli would never grant that comfort. He'd compliment enemies at dinner, defend rivals in public, praise the very people he planned to outmaneuver. Because when someone sees you as a threat, they mobilize. But when they're unsure, they relax. They sleep. And the best time to strike is while they're dreaming. Psychologists call this strategic ambiguity. You disarm suspicion by playing both fox and lion, charming enough to earn trust, frightening enough to command respect. Your neutrality is camouflage. Your unpredictability is armor. Rule 8. Make them safe before you take power. The easiest conquest isn't fought, it's welcomed. Machiavelli would mimic your values, echo your language, praise your leadership. He'd disagree softly, as if guided by you, not against you. And just when you felt most secure, he'd move. People obey immediate needs. They're blinded by the comfort of the present. So he'd build trust like a scaffold, only to climb it past you. And when you finally realized, he'd already taken your place. Rule 9. Create dependence, then vanish. Threats inspire resistance. Dependence inspires despair. Machiavelli wouldn't intimidate you. He'd help you in ways no one else could. He'd solve your hidden problems, stabilize your chaos, make himself indispensable, and then he'd leave. The withdrawal is the wound. Neuroscience shows the brain treats sudden absence like physical pain. You don't hate the person who left. You hate the void they left behind. That emptiness becomes obsession. That obsession is control. Rule 10. Turn favors into shackles. Most people give to be liked. Machiavelli gave to enslave. A favor isn't kindness. It's leverage. He'd never demand repayment outright. He'd simply let the imbalance grow, heavy and unbearable, until you gave loyalty, secrets, or obedience just to ease the weight. Social psychology proves this. Humans are wired for reciprocity. An unpaid debt festers until it transforms into psychological chains, and the longer you leave it unacknowledged, the tighter those chains become. Rule 11. Loyalty through betrayal. We think loyalty comes from kindness. Machiavelli knew better. Loyalty comes from compromise. He'd never order betrayal. He'd create conditions for you to betray on your own. A whisper here, a subtle opening there. You'd share a secret you shouldn't, break a rule for his approval, criticize someone to win his smile. Now you're tied. Not by admiration, but by guilt. People protect the things they've compromised for. You betrayed someone else for him. Now you're invested in him. That's loyalty, not by affection, but by entanglement. Rule 12. Collapse alliances from within. Machiavelli's genius wasn't in fighting individuals. It was in dissolving entire networks, not by open assault, but by whisper, by planting doubt, by letting suspicion fester. He'd never say, "Your ally is false." He'd say, "I'm not sure why she never defends you." Or, "It's strange he forgot to mention you." Nothing direct, just seeds. And humans, wired for negativity bias, water those seeds until paranoia blooms. Groups don't implode from external pressure. They implode from mistrust inside. Machiavelli wouldn't attack your alliance. He'd let you dismantle it yourself. Rule 13. Reflect their insecurities back to them. Control doesn't always come from dominance. Sometimes it comes from resonance. Machiavelli would master the art of echoing people's private doubts, but gently, never as attack, always as empathy. You've done well, especially considering people rarely take you seriously. You always manage to get through, even when others overlook you. These aren't compliments. They're mirrors tilted at just the right angle. They trigger agreement from pain. Psychologists call this labeling bias. Once someone feels their inner struggle is named, they become attached to the one who named it. This is manipulation at the molecular level. Insecurity bypasses defenses. It feels intimate. It feels honest. And the person who sees you in your insecurity becomes the one you unconsciously defer to. Rule 14. Never hold the knife yourself. Machiavelli's brilliance wasn't just ruthlessness, it was cleanliness. He'd orchestrate betrayal, collapse rivals, ignite conflict, but never appear as the executioner. Someone else would always swing the blade. Why? Because enemies multiply against the punisher, not the whisperer. The one with clean hands becomes the inevitable alternative, the one people turn to once chaos burns itself out. This principle echoes through psychology. Humans attribute blame to visible actors, not hidden causes. If you provoke someone into self-destruction, they become the villain. You become the survivor who just happened to be there. That's power without fingerprints. Rule 15. Silence as extraction. In every conversation, the most dangerous person isn't the loudest, it's the quietest. Silence is not passivity. It's a vacuum, and vacuums pull confessions out of people. Picture a negotiation. They insult you. You smile. They ask for your opinion. You nod. They push for reaction. You blink. The silence suffocates them. To escape it, they keep talking. And the more they talk, the more they reveal. Neuroscience calls this the social discomfort loop. Humans crave equilibrium in conversation. Silence disrupts it, forcing them to overexpose themselves. You don't interrogate. You don't accuse. You just sit, and they betray themselves. Machiavelli would never win through force when silence could win through fear. Rule 16. Be unpredictable when it counts. Predictability is vulnerability. If they can map your habits, they can manipulate you. If they know your responses, they can provoke you. Machiavelli would never be chaotic. That's weakness. But he'd be strategically unreliable. Sometimes he forgives. Sometimes he vanishes. Sometimes he responds instantly. Sometimes weeks later. Sometimes he plays merciful. Sometimes merciless. Why? Because unpredictability creates fear. And fear, neuroscience shows, thrives on uncertainty. Humans prefer even painful certainty over the anxiety of not knowing. So the person who cannot be predicted is the person who cannot be prepared for. Rule 17. Presence that lingers in absence. True dominance isn't about being everywhere. It's about being unforgettable. Machiavelli would leave such a psychological imprint that even in his absence, people acted as if he were in the room. How? By setting standards impossible to ignore. By offering judgments so sharp they echo long after. By holding himself with such restraint and weight that people second-guess themselves through his memory. This is more than reputation. It's phantom influence, a presence that persists neurologically. The shadow of the teacher, the critic, the leader you can't forget. Even when he leaves, the decisions of others remain tethered to his ghost. Rule 18. Never threaten. Let fear breathe. A threat is a confession. It signals intention, removes uncertainty, and gives your opponent something to brace against. Machiavelli wouldn't threaten, he'd imply. He'd let you wonder what he might do. Silence when you lie. A single phone call left unexplained, disappearing at a critical moment. That ambiguity forces the imagination into overdrive. And fear born from imagination is always worse than reality. Modern psychology calls this the availability heuristic. People overestimate dangers they can vividly imagine. A vague fear consumes more mental energy than a stated one. Machiavelli's weapon wasn't aggression. It was the terror of not knowing. Rule 19. Revenge delayed is revenge perfected. Impulse retaliation is weakness. It places you in reaction to your enemy's tempo. Machiavelli's philosophy was patience. Injuries, he wrote, should be inflicted all at once, at the moment they devastate most. So he would wait. Watch. Let you believe you'd escaped. Let you relax into your illusion of victory. And then, when you'd let go of suspicion, he'd strike decisively. Once, cleanly, without warning. Delayed revenge does more than punish. It corrupts the mind of the target. They spend months, years, haunted by paranoia. They can't enjoy success. They can't sleep without replaying the past. That's not vengeance. It's psychological occupation. Rule 20. Become a system, not a man. Charisma dies with the body. Systems outlive it. Machiavelli's true genius was not in charm, but in embedding himself so deeply into the machinery of power that removing him meant dismantling the structure itself. The lesson is timeless. Don't just be admired. Be necessary. Train others to think like you. Imprint your strategy into their routines. Make yourself the architecture, not the decoration. When you're no longer just a person, but the pattern everyone else depends on, you've transcended influence. You've become legacy. That's immortality in psychological form. Rule 21. Make your name unspeakable. The final stage of power isn't fame, it's myth. Machiavelli wouldn't chase trends or followers. He'd cultivate something darker. The weight of a name unspoken. Not because people forget you, but because invoking you feels dangerous. You know who I mean. Don't end up like him. When your name becomes shorthand for consequence, you no longer need presence. You haunt the atmosphere. Cognitive science calls this implicit priming. Your mere association shifts behavior. People act differently without you saying a word, simply because of what you represent. That's more than power. That's specter. Now let's step back. What do these 21 rules add up to? They dismantle the illusion that dominance is about loudness, popularity, or constant exposure. They reveal a paradox. In a world that worships visibility, real power flows to the invisible. To the quiet manipulator, the patient strategist, the shadow that lingers longer than applause. And this is where the controversy lives. Most of us want to believe power is earned by goodness, transparency, or talent. Machiavelli forces us to admit the opposite. Power is taken by those willing to exploit perception, weaponize psychology, and master the art of silence in a culture of noise. He wouldn't trend. He wouldn't post. He wouldn't campaign for followers. He'd rewrite destinies behind curtains you never realized were there. And by the time you noticed, the stage was already his. That's the Machiavellian truth of today. The more visible you are, the more vulnerable you become. But the more you disappear, the more impossible you are to defeat. Let's pull the camera back. Why do these 21 rules resonate so deeply, even centuries after Machiavelli's death? Why do they still feel dangerous, even when reframed for the digital age? It's because they don't just describe strategy, they expose human nature. And once you see that nature clearly, you can't unsee it. Modern psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy all confirm what Machiavelli intuited. People are irrational, predictable in their biases, and terrified of uncertainty. And the person who masters those patterns doesn't just win arguments, he rewrites the rules of the game itself. Let's connect the dots. The psychology of illusion. Most of these rules, whether it's ambiguity, charm, or the fractured mask, come down to one truth. People respond more to perception than reality. This isn't cynicism, it's neuroscience. Our brains process social information through heuristics, mental shortcuts. We rarely verify facts. We rely on vibes. We don't see truth. We see coherence, likability, confidence, mystery. Whoever controls these filters controls us. That's why Machiavelli would never waste time proving integrity. He'd build illusions, because illusions are stickier than truth. They spread faster, last longer, and outcompete facts in the marketplace of human minds. The power of silence and absence. Another thread. Silence. Restraint. Invisibility. Why is it so effective? Because absence amplifies imagination. Cognitive psychology calls this the uncertainty effect. When we lack information, we don't default to neutrality. We overestimate danger. That's why Machiavelli would weaponize unpredictability, vanishing at key moments, letting others suffocate in silence. People don't fear what you do. They fear what you might do. And fear born of imagination is limitless. This is why the invisible strategist beats the visible influencer every time. Visibility invites attack. Invisibility invites legend. Dependence, betrayal, and psychological chains. Machiavelli's most controversial moves, manufacturing loyalty through betrayal, creating dependence then withdrawing, turning favors into shackles, rely on the darkest truth of human behavior. We protect what compromises us. Once someone betrays for you, they're yours. Once someone depends on you, they're bound. Once someone accepts your favor, they feel chained. This aligns with what behavioral economists call sunk cost bias. We defend investments we've already made, even bad ones, when that investment is moral, betraying a friend, breaking a rule. We defend it even harder, because admitting error would shatter our identity. That's the brilliance of Machiavelli's approach. He didn't buy loyalty. He entangled people until they couldn't leave without losing themselves. Networks, systems, and legacy. Most people chase admiration. Machiavelli's genius was to embed himself so deeply into structures that admiration became irrelevant. Even if you hated him, you couldn't remove him without dismantling the system you depended on. This is the shift from personality to pattern, from charisma to infrastructure. The philosopher Michel Foucault argued that real power doesn't come from individuals, but from the systems they create. Prisons, schools, bureaucracies, ideologies. Machiavelli anticipated this centuries earlier. Become the system, and they can never erase you. The final transformation. Myth. When people stop saying your name, not out of forgetfulness, but out of fear, you've crossed into myth. Your identity becomes ambient, atmospheric, implied. You don't just win power. You transcend into something else. Inevitability. That's why the last rule, make your name unspeakable, isn't just poetic. It's strategic. In cultures ancient and modern, the unsaid is the most sacred, the most feared. So what does this mean for us? It means Machiavelli is more relevant today than ever. Because today's world is noisier, more distracted, more desperate for attention than at any point in history. Everyone is visible, broadcasting, begging to be seen. And in that chaos, the true Machiavellian doesn't compete. He retreats. He disappears. He controls not through volume, but through velocity, not through fame, but through fear, not through recognition, but through resonance. And that's where the controversy lies, because these rules force us to confront the shadow side of influence. They expose that transparency is weakness, that goodness is secondary to perception, that charm, silence, and ambiguity outgun honesty, clarity, and kindness almost every time. Most of us don't want to believe this. We cling to the hope that truth wins, that fairness works, that light defeats darkness. But the world isn't built on hopes. It's built on minds. And minds are built on biases, illusions, fears, and desires. Whoever understands those structures holds the real throne. Here's the irony. You don't even need to use these rules to benefit from them. Just understanding them changes you. You stop being naive. You stop taking things at face value. You begin to see where manipulation hides, where silence is strategic, where charm is a dagger wrapped in velvet. Machiavelli wouldn't want followers. He'd want architects, people who see the blueprint beneath the noise, people who understand that power doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't trend, it lingers. It doesn't ask permission, it bends perception until consent becomes irrelevant. So ask yourself, in your own life, are you chasing visibility or are you cultivating invisibility? Are you desperate to be seen or are you content to be studied in absence? Are you proving or are you observing? Because here's the final paradox. Those who demand recognition rarely keep it, but those who build shadows often outlast the light. And if Niccolò Machiavelli were alive today, he wouldn't be on your screen. He'd already be in your head,